Hey there, folks! Branching Sickness has an update for all of us. Let's take a look at it, shall we? Won't delay us. If you want to support me, feel free to like or subscribe. But more importantly, please, 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 please go support the Branching Sickness team. They are amazing, and I will have a link to their Discord below. With this development update, the team has given everyone a sneak peek at the redesigned Flood Combatant sandbox, some animation tests, and some video footage of its armory aboard the Spirit of Fire. I'm gonna follow their quarterly update post quite closely. If you want to read it for yourself, check out their Discord. Early on in the development of Branching Sickness, the team created most of the flood forms with the quote, express purpose of driving constant up close and personal combat. They saw the original trilogy's philosophy of overwhelming the player constantly and decided that this was something they wanted to recreate. However, now that the team has more experience, it's decided to revisit the sandbox of flood forms, wanting to emphasize variety in function rather than a bunch of flood forms that, well, do the same thing but with a different skin on. As a quick aside, I do think this is a clever idea, and it allows more forms to shine while simultaneously letting the team get more creative. An issue with a lot of games today in terms of PvE is enemy redundancy. And much as I love it, I'm gonna give a game I love the heat here. Destiny. Specifically Destiny 2, where this problem is much, much, much more prevalent. What is the functional difference between a Thrall, Warbeast, and Wretch outside of their appearances? Nothing really. All three of them are squishy, melee-based enemies that attack in hordes with minimal differences in how they work beyond perhaps elemental damage. The most recent addition to this group, the Husks, are basically just the same, but with a notable improvement in the sense that they do actually have extra mechanics with tangible importance to how you will fight them. Destiny has a myriad of different enemies and species, but when you boil their mechanics down, it's really just redundant. An Acolyte, Goblin, Scion, or Vandal, well, they're all basically the same enemy with a different skin on, save for perhaps the Scion, which has additional mechanics. All of them are squishy adds, they're all ranged, they all have essentially the same grenade ability with a different skin on. Save for the Goblin, they all have a long-ranged sniper variant with a wind-up attack. They serve the same purpose, with the only minor difference between them being, well, pretty minuscule. So, the Branching Sickness team is doing good to vary its forms and their functions a bit more. They elaborate on this a bit in their inspiration section. I'll read from the update directly here. Halo CE introduced the Flood and centered primarily on the infection mechanic, which primarily sold the zombie fantasy. While they were certainly numerous, the mechanics weren't deep, and at some points library felt too repetitive when fighting them in long stretches. Halo 2 largely did nearly nothing new with the Flood, and it wasn't until Halo 3 where the Flood got their first major upgrade, introducing dismemberment and an additional combat form in the forms of Floodified Brutes. The Flood also gained 3 new forms in the form of new type pure forms, created to add some more variety and depth to their tactics. This is where the Branching Sickness team drew its biggest inspiration in trying to create something new and exciting for you to play against. Targeting a total of 8 functionally unique flood forms, the team evaluated possibilities to inject interesting new gameplay into the roster and found that the biggest room for expansion and experimentation actually existed in the middle of Sandbox, along with bringing the amount of ranged attackers up from 1 to 3. The Branching Sickness Flood Sandbox will feature the first airborne flood form in an FPS setting. The new forms we are bringing into our Flood will not only move in different ways, but will make decisions in unique ways based off of independent form personalities. Our goal in making these changes is to not only sell the feeling of a Flood horde, but to sell the feeling of an interesting horde. An example of this in practice can be seen in the snippet below, pulled directly from our brand new AI design document. And on that note, the team is also being realistic with expectations. It is a fan game with very limited resources, so it has to use what it has efficiently. That means that, as they detailed before, they won't be adding in any other factions beyond the Flood. This also means that flood forms we saw in the past have been remade and expanded upon. The team makes note of the fact that Halo Wars fans might be excited to see some of the forms they're cooking up. Another note is that the team wants to, quote, equip players with familiar tools, but challenge them against unfamiliar enemies. Personally, I'm eager to see what they come up with. Following that, we got some work-in-progress animation tests, featuring the various Branching Sickness assets. So, two things. One, Battle Rifle, looks amazing, as usual. Kind of looks like a cross between the BR-55 and 75. I'm pretty sure I noted that in a past video, actually. It's been a while. Two, we get a little demonstration of the equipment, the Trip Mine. Just as a side note, I'm pretty eager to see how they use the Trip Mine. It was a very underutilized piece of kit in Halo 3. Another thing I'll note is that the Trip Mine here is clearly taking a lot of inspiration from its Halo 3 counterpart, while also keeping the design fresh and distinct. They also have a little video showing off something else, and I'll just let it speak for itself. Next up, a little update on the Armory. We have received a few more details about it. For starters, it'll be a level that's accessible at any time from the main menu, and it allows you, the player, to test everything. The full weapons and equipment sandbox of Branching Sickness. It is also going to eventually be an area accessible to playtesters who they may or may not start to bring in at the end of the year. It's not just going to be a place for testing the sandbox, mind you, it's also a spot that allows the player to get familiar with the movement, and playtesters will give feedback on said movement. Here's a little demo. Firstly, guys, wonderful job. Let's take a little bit of a look at some things. First things first, you know I'm going to look at it. I've done it in the other two videos. The heads-up display. As usual, it's clearly a mix of things. It quite obviously has its roots in ODST's heads-up display, but there's also some elements from Reach, such as the presentation of the health bar, and the minimap is more akin to Halo 3's Spartan HUD. So next up, the M7S display. It has a pretty high ammo count, 500 rounds. The battle rifle has a count of 180. Shotgun, oh god, it looks so good, also has an ammo count of 60. I know everything is subject to change, and I don't know jack about game development, but I don't mind the high ammo count. Honestly, I can kind of see it as a clever trap, getting players to be complacent and therefore wasteful with their resources rather than actually taking the time to manage their ammo and grenades properly, but of course this can easily be subject to change again. And of course, to close that out, the team is still expanding. They need people for 3D hard surface modeling, 3D organic and character modeling, texture materials, 2D storyboarding. Actually, I might apply for that one. Anywho, 3D environments, VFX, SFX, FMOD design, and integration, AI programmers, as in like NPC AI, not ChatGPT, some Unreal Engine 4 and 5 programming. Again, link to their Discord in the comments and description. You can find their team application there, and if I get permission, I'll also put it in the comments and description. All in all, that's the update. What do you guys think? Please go support this team. And remember, be realistic with expectations. Don't put a ton of pressure on them. They are a team of volunteers without the funding and resources of a fully fledged dev studio. So please bear that in mind. They are doing amazing work, but it's gonna be slow. It's gonna come slow. And you know what? That's okay. What do you guys think? I will see you in the cosmos, friends.